Hello, everybody. My name is Mirko Novakovic. I am co-founder and CEO of Zero, and welcome to Code Red. Code, because we are talking about code, and Red stands for requests, errors, and duration, the core metrics of observability. On this podcast, you will hear from leaders around our industry about what they are building, what's next in observability, and what you can do today to avoid your next outage. Today, my guest is Berkay Mollamustafaoglu. Berkay is the CEO of Actioner, a new AI customer intelligence agent for B2B companies. He's also the general partner of ScaleX Ventures. Before that, he co-founded OpsGenie, which was later acquired by Atlassian for $295 million. Berkay, happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Go.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, OpsGenie, very well-known player in the observability world as a tool that people use to get paged, right, when in the middle of the night.
Not so much loud, maybe.
But let's start with my first question, which I always ask: which was your biggest Code Red moment?
Yeah, I thought about it as I listened to your previous podcast and saw the question. We didn't really have a very memorable Code Red when I was there. Like, we spent a lot of time on reliability, like much more than probably functionality building. The three principles of it, like minimizing dependencies of the solution and having redundancies, but also try to keep it complex, these conflicting tools. So we used AWS and we accepted that we were going to depend on them, but did a lot of work around doing everything else. Even in AWS, we didn't use all services. Like, we only use the core things that are stable, like HQS and Dynamo. We knew we could rely on, and it worked. Like, we didn't really have major outages, but it kind of became apparent that we were right about that after the acquisition, which we can talk about later, by Atlassian. We were in a different environment and had to integrate with a lot of the Atlassian services, infrastructure services, which we wanted to. Like, we wanted to be able to use Atlassian identity so that the users can log into Jira and OpsGenie with the same ID and so on. But that brought in the dependency issue, right? So we resisted for a long time. We always built, whenever possible, parallel systems. So, like, if that doesn't work, we could fall off over to our own systems, but that's not always possible, which is in case of Atlassian, identity, it wasn't. And after I left, Atlassian had a major outage. And even though OpsGenie services were up, customers that used Atlassian identity couldn't log in and use the system for weeks. And that was like more than anything I could dream of as an outage. Like, we were talking about if we were out for like more than a couple of hours, we may not survive that outage, because there was so much dependence on us being able to notify people that we considered that like this has to be working all the time. So that like our service not being able to serve for like weeks was a shocker. I mean, even though I wasn't involved and out of the company by then, it hurt. Like, it's always your baby, so to speak. As I'm sure you know, it was painful to watch even from outside, like a big nightmare scenario, I would say. They deleted some data, and the only way was to restore manually for each customer and so on. Just really painful.
I can totally relate to that. Yes, how it feels, especially if customers can't log in, right, and can't get access. It's kind of the worst case scenario. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I had even pings from customers like, I was out of the company for years by then. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, nothing I can do. Like, because their systems were working, but we didn't have a way to get them in to the solution. So they didn't, I should say, not me by then.
Yeah, I would love to understand more how you got started with OpsGenie, by the way, especially because you're from Turkey, right? And you started the business in Turkey, which is not like the usual place where those kind of really big successful startups are started. I think the only one I could, Redis is also Turkish, right? I think, isn't it originally?
Redis?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I
No,
think he's
no.
Sicilian. Yeah.
Okay. But
But at least,
there
yeah,
are not
from
so many,
outside.
right? So
Yeah, yeah,
how did you
true.
came up with the idea? How did you start? How did you get
Yeah.
funded? Was that easy or not?
Well, I was working in, in monitoring space for a long time. Like it's, 30 years maybe now. And in the US, I worked for the vendors, as a sales engineer, post-sales solutions architect type of roles. I work for the enterprise side, implemented those tools, monitoring tools. I'm sure like going back to these Netcool and Unicenter, HP OpenView, all those like tools. So it came from that background, like system admin, implementer of tools, and so on. And the last company I was working for was a network management vendor called Smarts, and I was in Europe by then, back in Europe, and covering the EMEA, like Europe, Middle East, Africa region, working with a lot of partners, implementing for large companies. But we always had this college friends, like wanted to start our own company, and eventually, when Smarts was acquired by EMC, I was kind of like, well, this is the opportunity, I'm leaving. And I left and started sort of a consulting business. I was doing a lot of implementations and so on. And then I convinced a couple of my college friends to join me so that we can build this backend, some products instead of just selling time as a consultant. That was the original, they call like forward deployed engineer now. That's not, I was the sort of original forward deployed engineer, I think. I was in the field implementing stuff, and they were building tools that we can reuse in different customer environments. So we did that for 6-7 years, I think. We had like a dozen customers paying us large sums, but we didn't really have a way to increase that number of customers. But we were working as part of those organizations, seeing what problems they had and so on. And we built a bunch of different products that had, 2 customers, 3 customers, that sort of thing. The development team ended up like very solid. I mean, I would come up with a product idea based on what I was seeing, and they would build in a month or two. We would sell it for a customer, maybe another one, but never got it right. And the OpsGenie idea was, again, like we saw something, the customer wanted a capability. We went out to the market and couldn't find anything, because we would find a product and do the implementation, integration, and so on. Typically, system integrator type capabilities. We couldn't find anything for alerting, notification management in the scale that they were getting thousands of alerts, and how to differentiate, what to do with all that kind of stuff. So we decided like there is an opportunity here, and like let's build something. And then we started talking to smaller companies and realized that they needed that as well. Like if this time frame of the web is coming through, mobile apps like this 24/7 operations were becoming a thing, cloud-based services, and that people needed some way of routing alerts to different field times and escalating and so on. So we decided to build it, and we used some of the customers as design partners for them. At that time, I was still the only. I think initially I was living in Belgium, and I moved to Switzerland. That's where I was when I was building the company, and the rest of the team was in Turkey, the technical team. So that's kind of how it started. And when we started building OpsGenie, there was a very, in beta and so on, there was a very big interest from especially companies in Europe. At the time, only notifications were through SMS, and each one was like 35 cents or something like that. Like it was ridiculously expensive. So when we built this tool and had the mobile app, which nobody else had, PagerDuty was our main competitors then. And they didn't have a mobile app. So when we built that and had a way of notifications, there was a big interest in European startups and so on. And so we had a very day one, like people started using. In a year, we said we are going to production, and a lot of them already became paying customers. That's how it started. So from that point on, we just kept building, and steady growth. 10% a month was without doing any marketing and so on. Just making it work for the customers, see what else they want, and so on. So that's kind of how it started. Totally bootstrapped. I didn't even know you could raise, funding from people like that. That was a thing. This was not just the years, but it wasn't just in my skill set. Like I didn't know anything about that world. Company investors would call from once a while, wanted to get some information because they would hear us about us from their other companies. I would talk to them, but nothing would go. And I didn't really have by then time to look for investment. And we were cash flow positive from day one. So it just went that way until maybe 2016. Reed Christian, who is a partner now in CRV, he was an analyst in battery. He contacted me, and I kind of gave him the brush off, like I don't have time to do anything. So, but he came and we talked a lot, and he helped me with the organizing some of that stuff, and that relationship ended up taking in the first and the only investment for the company about 2016, I think.
And it was 2 years before the acquisition, or when?
2 years, about 2 years and a couple months. That's it was a pretty fast years. I think we were 30 people when I took in the investment. There was 180 when we sold, so it was like a major build up. And I think in US we were 3 people, and it was like 90 people by the time we were done. So it was just build up to go to market. Once we knew that it was working, just build up marketing, SDRs and account executives, all that stuff. It grew very rapidly, and eventually led up to the acquisition by Atlassian.
Yeah, and how did that go? I mean, I remember that I was kind of surprised, right? Because at the time, I think I'm not sure if they acquired Statuspage before or after OpsGenie.
Before,
But
yeah.
Before. So Statuspage was basically the first time I saw them, and like, oh, they are taking something in the monitoring observability space, right? And then it was OpsGenie. So at that time, I was asking myself, okay, where are they going, right? What are they building? And was an interesting move. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was an interesting move. I mean, I think in the market, Splunk acquired a company that was smaller than us called VictorOps. And they had talked to us as well. And then when they acquired VictorOps, people kind of woke up and look at the field and saw that there were only 3-4 companies that you could buy, and it started moving. And I realized at that time that something was going to happen. But we had relationships with Atlassian partner team, we had built a lot of integrations. And I knew that they were also trying to build something in-house, from the conversations, it was kind of clear in that sense. So we knew them as well as many others in the market. So we had an inbound offer from another vendor, and it was attractive enough that I decided, okay, there's we had said no a couple of times before to various parties, just to give people the first acquisition offer we got was $750,000 for the company. So that was an offer. So we came a long way from there to saying no to a couple $100 million even before. But when it came to these levels, it's I know, I'm sure you went through the same things. It's when do you sell? Do you sell? Just like I didn't know anything about funding, I didn't know anything about exiting either. I didn't build a company to exit. It was just something that I wanted to build. But once I started, okay, what is happening? What is talking and stuff? It made sense to explore further. So I reached out to anybody who had kind of shown interest before. We had an inbound offer, and we will look into it. So if you want to do something, now is the time, kind of a situation, which was the case. So a couple companies got involved in that process, and at the end, Atlassian looked like the best fit, truly. We were all product led. Atlassian kind of made that product led stuff, and they had a lot of gap in this space, the operation space. I had found that a lot of things that I wanted to build in OpsGenie, if I wanted to continue myself, was going to replicate what they had. And I didn't like the strategic positioning in that sense. Like I didn't want to compete with Atlassian, replicate what they have. So in that sense, I said, okay, like this is the right move, and we decided to exit. And they were, the Atlassian looks at things as the work items. The incident was a work item that they wanted to work on. That was their focus. Like when they looked at it, we had the developer community and the concept of alerts and incidents and so on. With the hindsight, it was a lot harder than they were anticipating. Like the field is much bigger than what it looks from outside, like not just creating manual incidents, but dealing with lots of alert volumes and integrating with lots of tools. There was no open telemetry and all that kind of stuff. So we were integrating with everything one by one and so on. So I think they realized that it was a bigger thing to chew than initially, but there was still an opportunity. I think big opportunity. We all bought into the idea, so it was a very rapid, 2 months. Like everything was done. It's a blur. Like it was not the best 2 months of my life. Like talking to people, Australia and California, it was like a 24-hour cycle. Lawyers, lots of things I had no, knowledge or interest in learning. I had to go through in a very rapid time frame. But it's part of it. Like you have to learn a lot of things that you don't want to.
Yeah. I had exactly the same when we had this process with IBM. It was 3 months and I was so exhausted at the end, right? So exhausted. So when the deal closed, I always tell I was in my room and it was like, I had no really happy feeling, right? Because I was like so done and it was just signed and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I
Done
was,
deal.
I still sometimes tell the story. Like, it was a 300 million and change deal. And we signed some things in a hotel room somewhere, like if this happened in Turkey, there will be 20 days of signs of papers, like it just, I told them it was electronic signatures. I done it and there was a company in UK buying all this convoluted financial arrangements to acquire the company. It all happened electronically. Like we were on different places. One of the Atlassian founders did come to Turkey for it. Like we did the announcement in Ankara to the office, and then we went to Barcelona for the announcement together. So it was a rough time because there was a deadline. Like they wanted to announce in the user conference they had, so we had to rush to get to it, but there wasn't really enough time. And I when it's like 2 months, like what can it possibly take 2 months? That was my initial reaction.
I was at that conference, by the way.
Oh,
In
great.
Barcelona, yeah, because
I
at the
see.
time, my company, my first consulting business, we were a large Atlassian partner, selling
Yeah.
Atlassian, and I was at that conference. By the way, the first time I met Mike Ken Brooks, one of the founders,
Yeah.
2001, I was at a conference in Boston called the Server Side Conference, and I'm having breakfast in the morning, sitting with a young guy with a white T-shirt, and on it was Jira 1. So
I see.
that's where Mike. I think it's only Mike and the other co-founder in the company at the time, and they were
Yeah.
releasing Jira 1 at the conference at the
Wow.
time.
History in the making. Yeah.
It was really good and a nice guy. Now I
Yeah.
think the richest Australian, right? It's a
I imagine so.
huge company, huge successful business. Yeah, and
Yes.
interesting enough, to finish that journey, I was very surprised that now it looks like OpsGenie is going out of business, right? That's what we hear from we have a lot of customers who are using OpsGenie, and now they are looking for a replacement because it looks like it will go out of business. Is that true?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't really have any internal knowledge, but what they wanted to, they didn't know what to do with OpsGenie. In general, developer tools, they don't really care much about it. Seems like, the Bitbucket is sitting there, but there's an active team, a fairly large size team working on OpsGenie. What they've been working on is to put it inside the Jira Service Management product. So all the capability is there, like nothing went away, but you have to buy JSM instead of OpsGenie. So it's more of a packaging difference, I think. But it's JSM is like a Jira product. So there's some people love it, some people hate it. Like they don't want the interface. It's slower, like it feels out outdated and stuff, and not this like cool developer tool kind of thing. So I mean, I always thought they were gonna have a big hit if they retire OpsGenie brand and go with it. I mean, they thought the same. That's why they didn't do it this long. I was in favor of doing right away, like make it a Jira Ops or something like that, and go for that. But they didn't want to do that at the time. So now they're basically doing it. But yeah, the marketing around it was done poorly. I think that I got a lot of, I heard OpsGenie got turned off, sorry to hear that kind of stuff from friends, old colleagues, which doesn't seem to be the case, but that's how it's perceived in the market.
Yeah,
And,
I'm just reading, right? I'm just reading what the announcement said. It says 5th of April 2027, Atlassian will discontinue support for OpsGenie, and access to the product will be shut down. All data not migrated
instead of announcing that it is available in JSM, they announced the shutdown. Like it's
exactly.
So
and then it says all data not migrated to Jira Service Manager or Compass by the date will be deleted, right? So it's essentially in the second sentence that it's now part of Jira Service Manager. Yeah, but that's the way it goes, right? With products. And then you turned investor, right? I did pretty much the same. And then founder again. So tell me about your investment story. So from not knowing what venture capital is to becoming a venture capitalist.
So just continuing in the not knowing anything about anything, train, so to speak. Like after the acquisition, no one knew us in Turkey. Like even the companies who were using OpsGenie didn't know that. We had a major presence here and built the product here. So then, obviously exit made a big news in this part of the world, Eastern Europe and as well. And so I started meeting a lot of founders that kind of wanted to talk about like how we did it. Because, going from here to global, being successful in US, it's pretty tough, like to make that transition, especially, earlier. It's getting more common, so there's more information, but there was a lot less in our time. So I was talking to them, helping them as much as I could, like what we did, how we did, what they can do, introducing them to investors and so on. But it was always tough because they had this, they were, for example, a few of them in Turkey, they were successful making few $1 million from companies here that they had to kind of stop serving them to be able to focus on, which is kind of what we did. When we focused on OpsGenie, one of our guys took the legacy business, it became his business, and we continued with OpsGenie, but we funded for a while the development from that company's revenue. But that's, we pulled it off, but it's a very hard transition, I'm sure you know. So they were asking about all that kind of stuff. What became obvious that without capital, they were just not going to be able to make that transition. And capital is very scarce still in this region, in Eastern Europe, as you know. So, and I was working with investors, Dilek, who became my partner later. We decided that, like, if you can't provide the capital to make the transition, you're just, talking. It's all talk. And that's kind of how it came around to solve that problem. Like, if you want to become a global company, you have, technical founders, something that differentiates your core product. Like, we wanted to provide the investment so that you can make that leap. That was the investment thesis, and I became an accidental investor, so to speak. Started the fund with the Lake over 5 years ago now. That's how I got into this investment business, became a VC, moved to the dark side.
And mainly also in Turkey, or where did you invest?
Not in Turkey, but we invest a lot of people like me, like Turkish founders who lived in Europe or US, a few others as well. But maybe less than half are in Turkey, I guess. But like they have some connections to Turkey. Like one of the founders are Turkish, the others might be, from US and Europe. Building a team in Turkey, that was a big competitive advantage for us. Like there was a rich, high quality engineers, developers in Turkey, and there wasn't a lot of industry for them. So that was probably the success of OpsGenie. Like we tapped into it and found people we had no business of attracting any other way, right? Like they came in because we were really the most attractive company. There wasn't a lot of like us, and that was the early time in OpsGenie with the team was like this. It's the high that I'm trying to hit, probably, right? Like that's you have a group of competent people all rowing in the same direction. It's magical, and so yeah, like I'm trying to get back to that feeling, like click with the team and then go for it again. But that was that was founders like that, wanted to build a team in Turkey, or they were trying to go to US and or UK, like try to compete globally, and funding them was the kind of the idea.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I can totally relate also to the fact that you found it again, right? And I can understand the feeling, right? Bringing a team together, working on something, building a product, how good that feeling is, right? And I mean, you probably missed it, right?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I talked about what to do a lot, and that after a while, I felt like it's just, and I felt like the world is changing, so I didn't wanna give too much advice in terms of like we did it this way, but like things different now. Like maybe I wouldn't do it that way. So I felt like in time, my experience was my differentiator, and it was degrading. Like because the world is changing, and with AI. It was both like this magical new world. Like when it came in, I got excited. I was, when I finished college and moved to US for grad school, it was like 1990, beginning of 1990s. Just the internet was coming through. So like I lived through that, and then the mobile and the cloud and stuff. Like this felt like all of them combined, like very rapid, like world changing stuff. So I'm, shocked when people are indifferent to it. Like it's, this is, everything is changing. So like in that, building new products, like it's very exciting, and, building with a team that you click, like that's, like, there's nothing like it. I mean, so yeah, I went back to building something, which I'm happy about.
Yeah, and it's called Actioner. So tell us a little bit about what you're building.
Yeah, we're calling, we're still not sure about exact positioning, but the core problem was something, I call it a customer intelligence product, in underneath, like in I think last 20, 30 years, the industry built a lot of disparate products for different silos, right? Like the marketing has marketing, even in monitoring, as you know, there is a monitoring for this and monitoring for that. Like there's 10 different monitoring tools: network monitoring, ATM monitoring, application monitoring, service, all that kind of stuff. And I think primarily maybe it's because the buyers buy that way. Like if you sell something that's appealing to multiple teams, then they have to agree on something, and the sales cycles go crazy, and it fails somehow. So the industry built products for each one. Like it's the product management product, marketing product, CRM, and all that kind of stuff. And the customer data is like fragmented into those products, very much silos. So it's not available to everybody in a easy way in context of what they need to do when they're making decisions. When I was in OpsGenie, I read every support ticket, like every support conversation, and it was like I didn't understand how product managers can work without doing that, which was a big contention after the acquisition. It was a different world. Like I literally read for a long time. I would read every conversation, and the solving support issues was not support's problem or customer success problem. It was all the team. Like you would bring the right engineer to solve it and all that. And I thought it worked well, and we kind of tapped into what the customers want. And when we have conversations and you reach out to a customer, then they talk to you. But if you don't talk to them when they need you, they don't want to talk to you when you need them, right? So I had built all this business intelligence system. Like, I had very good engineers and had the bandwidth so that, like, put together 3-4 people team that took data from all those places, put into a data warehouse, build a BI system on top of it. And so we had all that kind of system, which I used very aggressively. And I couldn't really imagine how to operate without it. And then, I realized that, like, well, this is not, the case everywhere. I thought everybody had that kind of stuff. Like in Atlassian, I realized that nobody had it. Like you couldn't get information about a customer even in a month, like that. There was no apparatus to give you that. So we came from that premises, like this is fragmented information. You need to be able to know what's going on with this customer in all aspects, how they're using the product, like what is their support experience with, what are they talking about, which part of the product they're using, not using, is it going up or down, and every communication, like, are they happy, all that kind of stuff. So we need to bring this all together. So we kind of went around and designed a unified data model that brings all this opinionated way, like, this is how it should be. And, so that the AI can understand fully what the data looks like, and it can query it and get the data, and we can query, like, process all the customer data, and we can tell you, like, what was all the interactions, what's going on, all that kind of stuff. And decided to focus on customer success as the persona or the entity to target, because with the financial markets changing and the money no longer free, customer acquisition is very expensive. So retention became much more important. Like we had 130% NRR in OpsGenie, which was awesome. And now I think everybody has to kind of strive for something like that, 100+%, because it's, again, the acquisition costs are very high. And what is missing, one of the biggest things, is that the customer success, you throw people and hoping that, just because the customer has somebody to talk to, it will solve their problem. But they don't know what the customer is doing, what their objectives are. Are they happy? Like, you're reaching out to them, but you don't know that they have a ticket that they're very upset about. So we decided to, like, bring all this information and make it available with AI assistance. And if you give 100 accounts to a customer success person, they're not going to be able to keep track of all that. But we can have AI look at every customer every night or every week, whatever, look at all the data and decide whether, where it should be in context with their financials too. Like, is it a big customer or small customer? What is the ARR like? What is the potential ARR, right? All that can play into how you prioritize where your CSN spends the time, and just provide them the tools to minimize, if not eliminate, the busy work, like updating systems and all that kind of stuff. I think we can do all that, in a much more automated fashion using AI. And it's working better than I was thinking. Like, the AI is getting better in a faster pace than I thought when we started. I mean, that we kind of bet on that the stuff that he couldn't do then is going to be able to do in 6 months, a year, but even faster. I think it's getting there. So that's kind of what we are building, like a intelligence platform that brings all the information and makes it available in context wherever you want to consume, and not just our product, but browser extensions. So when you're writing an email, or reading an email and so on, and wherever else you may want to consume it. That's the gist of it.
Yeah, makes total sense. By the way, before I started the Zero, I was thinking about building something very similar. I can send you my notes afterwards. I will send you my notes because
Sounds good.
it's a true story. I also had a team dedicated at Instana, and we built something, we called it the Instana portal, where we also had a data warehouse and a full application on top of it, because we also wanted to know everything about our customers, right? Are the users using the product? How are they using it? Do they figure out any problems? Are they expanding? Are they growing? What support tickets are open? All these things we wanted to aggregate, and then we had and we didn't use AI at the time. We had a very simple rule-based engine where we had certain rules, right? Where we said if they don't have X, Y, Z dashboards, or if they don't have these alerts set up, then we gave points, and then we had like green, yellow, and red lights, right? Where we knew if something turns yellow or red, we could reach out to the customer and make sure they get happy again or get the value out of the product before they churn, right? So I totally relate to that, and I agree with you. I looked at many products. There are some like CRM products for PLG, like Polkos, but they are all more around the sales process and less around the customers and understanding them. And so I really haven't found a product that can really do what I wanted. So put me on your early customer list. I would really love to
you got a deal.
Test it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I love it. I'm really also obsessed about it, right? Because I feel bad if I don't understand if the customers get the value I want them to get.
Yeah, same, man. I mean, and also, again, not because I was some kind of genius, but we didn't have marketing and sales early on OpsGenie because I didn't really know at the time how to do that stuff. But we did like focus on the customer, what they want, and like all that. And it paid off. A lot of the customers came from referrals that we didn't even know about, like that they would say, why they use and all that kind of stuff. And when they ask something as a capability, we would turn around and do it if we can. If not, we would tell them, why or what we plan, all that kind of stuff. So having seen that work, when you're close to the customer, not the, sort of slogans about it, but actually staying customers, and not then moving to an environment where support, for example, is considered the overhead and then also outsourced to another company. It was crazy, right? Like I lost my mind. Like I'm like, how can you do that? Like I want to talk to the customers, right? So I think OpsGenie team kept we had a chat-based support intercom all the way till like last few months. I think they had it on till that announcement. Only Atlassian, only OpsGenie customers got chat-based support to what they were doing. But with I think now it's completely over. So to me, that is a very big differentiator. Like when customer can reach out to you. I mean, we had 98% satisfaction. Like, and they could vote after every interaction, and the customers who had the problems came higher in their customer satisfaction surveys. Right? Like if you have a problem and they care about you and solve your problem, it's better than the ones that don't have any interaction with you. Like they appreciate the help and that you're not leaving them on their own, so to speak. So it's important to me, I think.
It's, by the way, one of the most important advices I give founders, exactly what you just said, because a lot of people don't get it, right? If a customer has a problem, you can still turn that into something positive, right? The way you in the way you deal with that problem, right? If you are proactive, if you are helpful, if you solve the problem, and then after that you ask the customer, even if he was super angry about the problem, if you dealt with the problem in a really good way, it will turn into a positive interaction. Because at the end of the day, every customer knows that every tool on this planet will have a problem someday, right? There is no, I mean, that's Murphy's Law, right? You will always have issues and there will always be bugs, but it's really about how you as a vendor deal with those problems, right? And if the customer feels hurt, and by the way, I also love to treat every customer very similar, if it's a big or small one, because even if a small customer has a problem, that could turn also into a big problem for a large customer, right? So I think the way you deal with customers is really a cultural thing, and it must come from the top, and then you can turn that.
Even as a self-interested way, right? Like one of our breakthroughs came from a company, a startup founder, a German startup founder that found our product, from a commercial opportunity. It was like an 8 people startup, right? Like how much money can you make? But he probably told 50 different customers after that. Like I could track the end, like somewhat lineage of a certain, like a third of the customers to that one person, and he was in a small company. We also seen people move jobs from a small company, go to a very large company that would never find us otherwise. So it's you can't differentiate in that sense. You have to help them, and that's like think of it as an opportunity, every interaction, not a burden. Like that was the biggest, like I think larger companies, it's like I'm spending this much time, like this much money, and how do I pay less? Like instead of, and then having research teams like try to go do surveys to figure out what the customers want this way or that way. Like that's, to me, that was nuts. And so I give the same advice. If my gray beard is or anything, maybe that makes some mark somewhere.
And I think that one ages pretty well, right?
Definitely.
It's advice that is always kind of true. Very good advice also for founders here. It was super fun talking to you. I wish you all the best with Actioner, and I hope you give me early access. And would love to test it and get the hands on that, because I just love the topic.
Thanks, Mirko. I appreciate it. Great talking to you.
Thanks for listening. I'm always sharing new insights and insider knowledge about observability on LinkedIn. You can follow me there for more. The podcast is produced by Zero. We make observability easy for every developer.